Bless God. Welcome back to Tabernacling with the Father. Yesterday we did a teaching about tabernacling with the Father in a communal sanctuary, in our homes, and also in our physical bodies, because all three can be tabernacles, dwelling places, tents of meeting for our God. But now we're going to talk specifically about Sukkot and being prepared to dwell with Him during Sukkot, which is just a beautiful expression of love and intimacy with Him, but it is also a preparation and a memorial. Sukkot does a whole lot of things, and so we want to be prepared to tabernacle with Him because He has required it, but for various reasons. Now I want to share with you what the scripture reads in Leviticus chapter 23, and I'm going to start at verse 33 concerning Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. And reading out the complete Jewish, it says, Adonai said to Moshe, tell the people of Israel, on the 15th day of the 7th month is the Feast of Sukkot for 7 days to Adonai. On the first day, there is to be a holy convocation. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. So you take that first day off from work so that you can tabernacle with the Lord. On the For 7 days, you're to bring an offering made by fire to Adonai. This is going to be deliverance because you're experiencing that by spending time with Him. On the 8th day, you're to have a holy convocation and bring an offering made by fire to Adonai. It is a day of public assembly. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. So again, the 8th day is a day not to work and to join together with God's people and have a sacred convocation. These are the designated times of Adonai that you are to proclaim as holy convocations and bring an offering made by fire to Adonai. A burnt offering, a grain offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, each on its own day. Besides the Shabbats of Adonai, your gifts, all your vows, and all your volunteer offerings that you're to give Adonai. So this is one of the feast days where He says not to come empty-handed. He says it clearly in Deuteronomy 16:16 and a few other places where He wants us to bring gifts before Him, but also that we would receive from Him the deliverance that He has prepared for us. But there's more about Sukkot starting in verse 39. But on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered the produce of the land, you are to observe the festival of Adonai 7 days. The first day is to be a complete rest, and the 8th day is to be a complete rest. Again, both no work days. On the first day, you're to take choice fruit, palm fronds, thick branches, and river willows, and celebrate in the presence of Adonai your God for 7 days. Now, those branches, river willows, palm fronds, are often waved before Him, then also used on the top of the sukkah, which is done particularly in Israel every year, because in Israel during this time is not the rainy season. The rainy season comes in the spring, where it's actually, the fields are being watered for the harvest that is to come. During this time, we're celebrating the harvest, we're reaping the harvest, and so there's no rain in Israel during Sukkot. However, in Virginia and in other places in the world, there is lots of rain during Sukkot. And so what we do is we actually offer Him choice fruits from our region. Not the ones from Israel. We offer those that are from Virginia, like if we grow produce or if there are things that are grown right on our land, we offer those to the Lord as we're worshiping. We actually offer branches from the trees that are native right here to our land. But you can also order those fruits that are choice fruits in Israel and have those shipped to you, that you might wave them before the Lord during Sukkot as well. Either way is your choice, but the goal is that you be waving these fruits before the Lord and the branches before Him, that you're worshiping Him for all that He's given us in the land. Next, verse 41, it says, you're to observe it as a feast to Adonai 7 days in the year. It is a permanent regulation, generation after generation. Keep it in the 7th month. You are to live in Sukkot for 7 days, and Sukkot is the plural of sukkah. So you're to live in tents, booths, lean-tos for 7 days. Every citizen of Israel is to live in a sukkah, so that generation after generation you will know that I made the people of Israel live in Sukkot when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am Adonai, your God. Thus Moshe announced to the people of Israel the designated times of Adonai. Now, a lot of times people think that these are the feast of the Jews, but they're not. These are the feast of Adonai. And He says that every citizen of Israel is to live in a sukkah. Now, most people exclude themselves from citizenship in Israel, but in Ephesians chapter 2, it says that we are citizens of the commonwealth of Israel because we're grafted in by the blood of Messiah. And the reason that's really important to us is because when we're grafted in and we become citizens with God's people in the commonwealth of Israel, then that means that we are partakers of all of these promises as well with the children of Israel. And it's not just for Jews, but it's also for those sons and daughters of Abraham who are sons and daughters by faith. And so again, Ephesians chapter 2 in verse 19, it reads, so then you are no longer foreigners and strangers. On the contrary, you are fellow citizens with God's people and members of God's family. So that's going to tell us that in connection with Israel, we are to keep the biblical feast, and they serve for very important reasons. Now, all weekend, we've been talking about dwelling with God for intimacy. We've also been talking about dwelling with God during times of chaos and tragedy. And Sukkot, more than any of the other feast days, really prepares us to be able to find solace in relationship with God no matter what's happening around us. And so I want to encourage you to keep the festival of Sukkot, to actually build a sukkah, erect a sukkah, or erect a tent before Adonai in your yard, within your household, with your family, or come to the Truth Center and erect one, because we have lots of grass here, lots of grassy area, and live in that sukkah. And the reason we want to live in it is because during that time, I am actually feasting off of what he has given me, the natural resources that he's given me. And that's what Sukkot is all about. Those natural resources that the Lord has given to me and my family, and us learning to live off of those. So we're pulling away from the electronics. We're pulling away from a lot of the man-made stuff. Some of it we use as we use sort of emergency preparedness, but there's not a dependency that pulls us away from God. So I want to encourage you to actually have a list of supplies that people might want to bring into their sukkah, or even part of the sukkah, like you want to bring the tent itself or the booth or the lean-to or whatever you're going to create. Be sure to waterproof it if you're in Virginia, because it is going to rain. It always rains during Sukkot in Virginia. Not just any rain. There's usually like a rainstorm during Sukkot in Virginia. So you want to make sure that no water is going to get in, because it would destroy your sukkah. The first year we actually built one. Like the booths, the ones that are built in Israel, and I'm telling you, the last day of Sukkot, that thing just crumbled down. It was gone, because we actually had built it out of 2x4s and things like that, and it did not last very long. We were wet inside there. But later on, we actually erected a tent, and it blessed me, because that year, the first year we kept Sukkot, I had a vision of Yeshua, and he came into a campground, and there were tents everywhere, actual tents like this one. And when he showed up, everybody came out of their tents and stood in front of their tent, and he looked at them and he said, "My faithful ones." And that blessed me, because it let me know that there is variation in what we would erect for him, but he gives us the wisdom to know how to live in the sukkah with our families. You want to be sure that you can live in it. That's going to be important, that it's livable, that you can eat here, you can rest here, you can even bathe here. So you want to have water for drinking, water for bathing. Sometimes we've got like baby wipes and stuff like that, bug spray. We've got a lot of practical things on this list, which I'll share with some of you in the future, and I'll also probably publish it, as we'll add more, because lots of other people have more suggestions of things that we could add to this list. But I want to encourage you, more than any of the other practical things that we have, sheets and pillows and batteries and comforters and a table and chair, like we've got table and chairs outside of our tent, so we have more space inside for sleeping and fellowshipping with God. I want to encourage you also to have things that bring you close to God in your tent. You want to make sure that you have your Bible. Like for me, I've got my communion, I got my juice, I got my matzah, because that helps me to commune with God. I've got books that encourage me. I've got one that I love called Love Awakened, and it's about a bride and a bridegroom and their metaphoric journey to marriage that really looks like Yeshua and the bride, the ecclesia. I've got my journal and my Bible, and these are things that you want to have with you, because during this time we are retreating to God. It's important that we learn how to live in the sukkah, but more than anything, we're learning to live with him. If we're not retreating to him, if we're not drawing near to him, then we're kind of missing the whole point, and we don't get the blessing of pulling away to him. So I'm going to take you to Psalm 91, and this is the last thing that I'll share with you, because we want to get the blessings of Sukkot. And part of Sukkot is really preparing us for anything that will come. We'll remember that God brought us out of some harrowing situations. He brought the children of Israel out of slavery in Egypt, and he brought the rest of us out of slavery and sin. So we remember that during Sukkot. But we also are preparing for whatever would come, making our hearts, minds, bodies, and environment ready for what will come in the future. And so in Psalm 91, one that we always quote, we want to look at how it starts. You who live in the shelter of Elyon, that's the Most High, who spend your nights in the shadow of Shaddai, that's the Almighty, who say to Adonai, my refuge, my fortress, my God in whom I trust, he will rescue you from the trap of the hunter and from the plague of calamities. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His truth is a shield and protection. Now, we know the rest of it about the 10,000 falling at the right hand and all this, and won't come near to you or your tent. But do we understand that we've got to dwell with him to make that happen? That's what we've got to get. Pulling away with God, making a refuge with him, being prepared for emergencies and whatever would come is essential. But if I'm not prepared in my spirit to find him in the midst of all of that, then I'm still going to fall to the pressure of the calamities. So when I'm tabernacling with him, I'm not thinking about what I'm walking away from. I'm thinking about who I'm walking to. I hope you will join us for Sukkot. Visit truthandspirit.org to find out what days we're going to be together, and we welcome you to come any of those days and just fellowship and tabernacle with the Father with us.